The Corporate Transparency Act, is it dead? Probably for now. What does that mean? Hi, I'm John Strohmeyer with Strohmeyer Law, where we help our clients leave no unfinished business. While I am a lawyer, I am not your lawyer, so make sure you talk to your own advisors and get specific advice for your specific situation. Now, today we're talking about what will probably be our final Corporate Transparency Act update for a while. On March 21st, FinCEN released an updating saying that they're going to issue an interim final rule that removes the requirement for most U.S. companies and U.S. persons to report beneficial ownership information under the Corporate Transparency Act. Now, I get a lot of comments on this channel about they should have undone this, it's unconstitutional. Whatever you think about that, we're going to put that to the side. The problem I really have with this is a regulation being issued by an agency that really guts a law that was passed by Congress. Now, whatever your thoughts on the CTA, well, I've been here keeping people updated for a couple of years on this. Right or wrong, whatever you think about it, having an agency just say we're not going to enforce this goes beyond the normal prosecutorial discretion. This, frankly, is just kind of lawless. If they want to repeal it, fine, go and repeal it. The problem is there have never been the votes in Congress for it. So we'll kind of put that to the side for now and say, what are you supposed to do? And I'll tell you what I've been telling people. Eventually, you will get a new administration that will probably decide to enforce this. So the best option for now is, the reporting portal is still open. Do your reports. Obviously there's no threat of a penalty at this point. They've said they're not going to impose penalties. They're not going to require it for domestic companies. Okay, fine. If you don't want to, again, that is going to be your choice. The flip side of it, and what I've heard from my contacts in the banking world, is there's nothing that's changed on their end from the requirements included in the Corporate Transparency Act that require banks update their KYC or know your customer, know your client rules to require enforcement, require that they have proof that the CTA was complied with. So it looks like we're getting to that point of you may not be required to file immediately, but when you go and try and open a bank account in the name of your entity, the banks, in an effort to keep their license, to keep their ability to operate as a bank, are going to have to require that you provide proof that you've complied with the CTA. So knowing that, again, it's one thing for FinCEN to say, you don't have to do this, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to continue to not do it. Again, look at how many reports were filed. A lot of people weren't doing it anyway. You're going to get up to a point of, well, if you want to go open a bank account for this entity, you're going to be filing it because a bank is not going to let you open a bank account without having complied with that. Again, this is still up in the air there, but what I've heard from my friends in the banking world is they don't see a reason why they're not going to require this. They don't see a reason why they won't, or while they're going to put their license on the line for somebody just because they don't want to comply with the CTA. Again, we'll see what happens. I'm going to continue to recommend that people comply with this because the law is still the black letter law on it. That was not changed. A regulation that goes contradictory to the law, that could be challenged and, upheld at some point in the future. And while it's unlikely to happen in the next few years, given the Trump administration's position on this, at some point there will be, not a Trump administration, and there's a good chance they will come back. That new administration will be enforcing these laws. I would expect that happens. Again, considering that we got that letter from the senators a few weeks ago saying, hey, this should be enforced. We do want this to be enforced. With that bipartisan consensus from the Senate, I would expect that this is something that's going to eventually come back around. And it'll end up being like the foreign bank account report. That was added as part of the Bank Secrecy Act, and I think in the 1970s. Well, it really wasn't until the early 2000s that IRS started enforcing it. So it may be years, it may be decades, who knows? As I've been asked questions from other attorneys, My easy answer is, do you want your client to come back years from now when they start enforcing this and say, well, why didn't we do this? I thought, you were going to protect me. That's why my answer for now is get it filed and don't think about it. Again, the information that they're asking for, this is all information that the government had anyway as part of tax records. The people who are being reported as beneficial owners get either a K-1, a W-2, or they're married to somebody who does. For the most part, in my experience, it's been exclusively people like that. And so, why did they do this? Wasn't there a more efficient way? There probably was a more efficient way. Nobody asked me, and I haven't really thought about a more efficient way to kind of ensure all of this. But the tax secrecy provisions in the IRC, Internal Revenue Code, require that the Internal Revenue Service can't share that information with anybody else to protect taxpayer privacy. And so they needed a different mechanism to bring the US into line with what was happening in terms of global financial security. So here we are. It's the beginning of April. We're in a world where, again, if you don't want to file any of the BOI reports, you don't have to. Uh, Being a risk averse pessimist, I'm going to continue to tell people just go ahead and do it. The government already had all of this information in different places. You're not really telling them anything new, but they needed it in an effort to track and stop financial crimes. I know already there will be comments. Well, we don't have to. I know you don't have to anymore. Who knows if it'll ever actually get overruled? Who knows if Congress will ever get around to passing a law changing it? For now, well, it's a do as you feel. So thanks for watching. If there are any other CTA updates, obviously we'll be here to share them with you. But for now, it seems like if you don't want to file it, you don't have to. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.